Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into the sandals of a woman whose name even the Bible forgot to jot down. Imagine this. You're elbow deep in a vat of laundry, scrubbing your husband's tunic that smells suspiciously like camel breath, when suddenly a shadow falls over your washtub. You glance up, squinting against the desert sun, and see a man with an official-looking scroll and a beard so elaborate it could house a sparrow's nest. He clears his throat. You, the one with henna stains on your knuckles, are summoned to weave the curtains for God's mobile home. You almost drop the wet tunic into the dust. Me, the woman who once sewed a fig leaf patch onto her best robe and called it embroidery? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment telling me your city and the exact time you're listening to this. I'm collecting virtual postcards from dreamers worldwide. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The man's scroll crinkles as he unrolls it. You wipe sudsy hands on your apron, leaving damp streaks across the rough fabric. By order of Bezalel, master craftsman of the Tabernacle, he recites, voice drier than the Sinai gravel under your feet. Your eyes dart to the ink strokes. There it is, your name wedged between Oholiab's metal polishers and asterisk goat hair spinners. Asterisk a fly buzzes near your ear. You swat at it, half expecting to wake up. This is the kind of thing that happens to Miriam's cousin's friend. Not to you, who once accidentally dyed an entire batch of yarn pews because you misheard madder root as mud root. The official taps the parchment. Asterisk reported dawn. Bring your own loom pegs. Asterisk he strides off, his sandals kicking up little puffs of dust that settle on your wet laundry. You stare at the scroll fragment thrust into your palm. The ink smudges where your damp thumb brushes it. Tabernacle weaver. The words feel foreign, like trying to swallow a date pit. Around you, camp life churns on. Toddlers wail, a donkey brays. Someone grandmother haggles over lentils 3 tenths down. Normalcy. Yet everything tilts. You glance at your hands. The henna patterns from your sister's wedding last moon cycle are fading into rust-colored ghosts. These hands, used to grinding barley and patting flatbread, are now expected to spin holy thread. You picture the tabernacle designs everyone whispers about. Cherubim with too many eyes. Pomegranates that must look plump but not too tempting. Your last embroidery project was mending a torn fishnet. You bite your lip. Did the selector see the crooked stitch line on your tent flap? Or was it the way you'd woven a stubborn patch of thistle blooms into your mat? A tiny rebellion against beige desert life? A child runs past, chasing a bleeding kid. The noise jolts you. Dawn. You'll need to oil your loom's warp beam tonight and find those decent bobbins you buried under the spare goat blankets, and mentally prepare to weave alongside the legendary Oholiab's team. Women whose tapestries make pharaohs sigh. Your stomach knots. Maybe you could claim sudden plague symptoms, but then you remember the gleam in the official's eyes when he said asterisk chosen. Asterisk, not pity, not duty, need. The God who split seas needs your hands to drape his shadow. You pick up the half-scrubbed tunic. The camel breath scent suddenly smells. Holy? Or maybe you're just lightheaded. Outside your tent, the sun dips, staining the sky the exact purple of royal dye. You'll need to learn that color soon. For now, you hang the tunic to dry. It sways like a surrender flag. The dawn air bites your cheeks as you push open the flap of the weaving tent. Inside, the scent hits you not holy incense, but the raw, barnyard funk of 200 unwashed goats. Bales of shaggy, gray-brown fleece pile against the walls like grumpy sheepdogs sleeping upright. A woman with forearms thicker than tent poles thrusts a bundle into your arms. Fresh from the herds near Rephidim. She grunts. The wool is still crusted with things. Twigs, dry dung, a defiant burp pricks your thumb. Welcome to divinity's doorstep. Your designated workspace is a low stool beside a mountain of fleece. No loom yet, just you a bone picker, and a stone trough of lukewarm gritty water. The woman across from you, Tamar. She rasps her name while hacking a knot free. Demonstrates. Dunk, squeeze, scrape. You mimic her. Cold water soaks your sleeves to the elbow. You lift the fleece. Water streams brown. A drowned beetle floats away. You scrape the bone tool along the wool's grain. Dirt, sand, and tiny seeds rain onto the trampled earth floor. The smell intensifies: wet wool, wet goat, wet desert. It clings to the back of your throat. You try breathing through your mouth. Big mistake. Now you taste it. Tamar snorts at your grimace. Wait till summer. Then it really sings. She flicks a particularly stubborn clump into a basket labeled drawsburn. You eye your own clump. Is that lichen or ancient chewing gum? You scrape harder. Fleece fluffs out, releasing a puff of dust, motes dancing in a shaft of morning light. One lands on your nose. You sneeze violently, startling Tamar. Bless you, she mutters, not looking up. Save those sneezes. You'll need M when the dying vat's open. The dread in her voice is palpable. Hours blur. Your fingers prune. Your back screams from hunching. The rhythm sets in: dunk, squeeze, scrape, flick. Dunk, squeeze, scrape, flick. The pile of clean fleece grows slowly beside you, smelling marginally less like a goat's armpit. You find a rhythm, almost meditative, if meditation smelled like a wet barnyard. You notice things: the surprising softness of the undercoat once freed from grit, the way sunlight turns wet strands into spun copper, the tiny rhythm Tamar taps with her foot, a herdsman's grazing song, maybe. Just as your shoulders unknot, you plunge your hand into the trough for another fleece. Your fingers brush something slimy. You yelp, flinging it out. A fat, pale grub wriggles indignantly on the dirt floor. Tamar bursts out laughing, a sound like rocks tumbling. Extra protein, she wheezes, wiping her eyes. Bezzy says weavers need strength. Mortification burns your ears. You glare at the grub. It curls into a defensive ball. You side pick it up gently with a scrap of fleece and toss it out the tent flap. Asterisk, go find a nice cactus friend. Holier pastures, asterisk. By midday, the scent has seeped into your very pores. You lean over the rinsing trough, catching your reflection in the murky water. Your hair escapes its braid in frizzy tendrils. A smudge of dirt decorates your forehead. You look less like a consecrated artisan and more like something dug up. But then you glance at your growing pile of clean, fluff wool. It glows softly, almost silver in the light. This scratchy, smelly stuff will become the outer curtain, the first layer shielding the Holy of Holies. The God who dwells in unapproachable light will be veiled by something you scoured clean. The absurdity makes you snort. Tamar looks up, eyebrow raised. You just shake your head, dunk another fleece, and scrape. The itch is everywhere. But maybe, just maybe, it's a holy itch. The sour tang of vinegar and something far more primal, like the ocean's belly turned inside out. Assault your nostrils long before you see the dying vats. Tamar wasn't joking. Row upon row of massive clay pots burble and steam like primordial cauldrons under a makeshift palm frond roof. The air shimmers with heat and eye-watering vapor. A woman with hands stained deep indigo gestures you toward a vat frothing a violent, unsettling purple. Tyrian duty, she says, her voice raspy. The sea snails first, always first. You're handed a coarse linen apron stiff with old dyes and a pair of wooden tongs longer than your arm. The vat master, Deborah, her name barked over the hissing pots, points to a woven basket brimming with spiny, fist-sized mollusks. Crack, extract. She demonstrates with brutal efficiency. A sharp rock smashes the shell. Her stained fingers hook and yank out a grayish, gelatinous lump. She squeezes it mercilessly over the vat. A thick, yellowish goo, smelling overwhelmingly of low tide and rotting metal, oozes into the simmering liquid. The purple deepens instantly, swirling like a storm cloud. Gland, Deborah states. 1 drop of glory, 1,000 drops of stink. She drops the empty carcass into a slop bucket with a wet thud. Your turn. The first shell is stubborn. You whack it. It skitters away. Tamar chuckles nearby, stirring a pot of crimson madder root that smells blessedly earthy in comparison. Finally, crack. Jagged edges bite your palm. You fish out the cold, slimy creature. It feels alien repulsive. Squeezing it is like trying to wring glue from a rag. Nothing happens. Deborah watches, arms crossed. Harder. Like you hate it. You grit your teeth. Press your thumbs deep into the yielding flesh. Squish. A vile, viscous streak of yellow spurts. Not into the vat, but across your apron and cheek. The heat of the steam intensifies the fish market reek clinging to your skin. Tamar's laugh echoes again. Deborah just sighs, handing you a rag that only smears the stain. Aim better. Or wear it. Purple's holy, remember? Hours blur into a rhythm of smash, grab, squeeze, and flinch. Your apron becomes a canvas of violent splotches. The vat bubbles a mesmerizing, deep-sea purple promising holiness, but delivering only eye-watering fumes. Your knuckles ache. The stench is in your hair, your clothes, the back of your throat. You understand why Deborah's voice is ruined. You glance at the madder root Vat Tamar tends, a warm, rusty red, smelling of wet earth and autumn roots. Simple, honest, human. Purple feels divine punishment. Then comes the blue, not from snails, but from crushing mountains of tiny dried woad leaves into a stinking paste in a mortar. It coats your arms in a chalky gray-blue film. Deborah pours vinegar onto the paste in a smaller pot. A chemical alchemy occurs. The gray paste blooms into a startling celestial blue as the vinegar reacts. Indigo's shy brother, Deborah rasps. A flicker of pride in her eyes. You stir the transforming sludge. The vinegar fumes mix with the existing purple stench, creating a new olfactory horror. Your eyes stream. Later, dunking a test swatch of linen into the purple vat, you watch the fabric drink the color. It emerges not the gaudy brightness of Egyptian dyes, but a deep, complex violet, rich and shadowed like twilight over mountains. It's breathtaking. You forget the stink, the slime, the aching hands. This is the color of kings, of priests, of the very curtains that will shroud the presence. You hold the dripping cloth. The dye runs down your wrists like liquid amethyst. It's beautiful. It's sacred. Deborah nudges you aside with her hip. Admire later. More snails. She points to a fresh, daunting basket. That blues for the cherubim wings. Needs 3 more dips. She pauses, seeing your exhaustion. He sees the color, not the stink girl. She dips a swatch into the indigo pot. The blue is impossibly pure, like a slice of midday sky. And he sees the blue. You pick up another spiny shell. Crack. This time, the yellow goo hits the vat dead center. The purple swirls, deep and mysterious. Maybe Deborah's right. Maybe holiness isn't polished marble and sweet incense. Maybe it's crushed shell, stinking vats, and stained hands, faithfully making something beautiful from the deep, messy guts of creation. You grab the next shell, breathing through your mouth. The holy stink clings, but so does the color. Deep inside the vat, something divine is brewing. The dye fumes still cling to your hair like a stubborn ghost as you're ushered into the quiet eye of the storm, Bezalel's design tent. It's cooler here, smelling of cedar shavings and sun-baked parchment instead of rotting mollusks. Light streams through a high opening, illuminating dust motes dancing above a massive table strewn with madness. Your breath catches. This isn't a blueprint. It's a divine fever dream pinned down with obsidian weights. Bezalel himself stands bent over the table, a lean figure haloed by the dusty light. He doesn't look up. His charcoal-stained finger traces a line so impossibly intricate it makes your eyes water. It's a wing, no, part of a wing, belonging to a creature labeled Karov. Its feathers aren't feathers, but interlocking spirals of blue, purple, and scarlet thread, swirling like captured galaxies. Each spiral is annotated with tiny, precise numerals. Asterisk, twist ratio 3 to 1 matter to woad. 28 threads per cubit. Asterisk, you blink. Cubits, right? The distance from your elbow to your fingertips. Suddenly, your own arms feel woefully inadequate measuring tools. A junior apprentice, pale and sweating, nudges a smaller scrap of parchment toward you. It's your section, the inner veil. Your gaze darts over the dense lines, cherubim facing each other, wings touching. Not just touching, interlacing. Their feathers form a canopy of impossible complexity over the mercy seat depicted below. The threads aren't merely horizontal and vertical. They're diagonal, curved, layered. Notes cram the margins. Asterisk under twist crimson for depth. Ultramarine highlight only on upper curve. Gold thread couching. 0.1 millimeter spacing. Asterisk gold thread? You've only ever seen gold on Pharaoh's envoys. The sheer scale of the detail is paralyzing. It's like being asked to map the constellations with a spool of flax. See the border? The apprentice whispers, pointing a trembling finger at the edge of the design. It's a repeating pattern of pomegranates and bells. The pomegranates look plump, bursting with tiny seeds meticulously indicated by minuscule dots. Asterisk seeds. Alternating carnelian and dark amber silk knot. 144 per fruit. Asterisk, you count the pomegranates sketched along just one edge. 20. Your stomach does a slow, cold flip. That's thousands of knots. Per curten. And there are 2 curtains. You glance at Bezalel. He's muttering to himself, erasing a line with a scrap of damp leather, then redrawing it fractionally straighter. The intensity radiating from him is almost physical. This isn't craft. It's wholly calculus. You think of the simple fishnet you mended, the straight lines of your tent weave. This feels like being handed a slingshot and told to carve Mount Sinai into a statue of a date palm. Questions. Bezalel's voice, unexpectedly quiet, cuts through your panic. He hasn't looked up, still focused on the cherub's spiraling eye. You swallow the gold couching. You stammer, pointing at the terrifying 0.1 millimeters notation. How do we measure that? Finally, he lifts his head. His eyes are dark, deep set, holding a weariness that belies his intense focus. He doesn't smile. He picks up a sliver of cedar wood, thinner than a reed, and holds it up, like this. He snaps it effortlessly. The broken edge is impossibly fine, almost invisible. You learn the weight of the thread in your fingers. You feel the space, like breathing. He drops the sliver, or you waste the gold. He returns to his drawing, leaving you staring at the tiny, perfect fracture in the wood. Asterisk, feel the space, like breathing. Asterisk, it sounds like mystic nonsense. Yet looking back at the design, the sheer impossibility of it. Maybe only the impossible could contain the presence. The precision wasn't arrogance. It was necessity. A house built for the uncontainable couldn't have sloppy seams. Tamar finds you later, still pale, clutching your scrap of parchment like a lifeline outside the design tent. She squints at the pomegranates. Fussy little fruits, aren't they? She nudges you. Don't let Bezzy's scribbles scare you. He draws the heavens, but we weave the earth, one knot at a time. Start with the background blue. Deep breath. Then the first curve of a wing. Just one. She taps the parchment. See? This bit here. Looks like a date palm leaf curling in the wind. Doesn't it? You've woven leaves before. You look again. Isolated from the cosmic chaos. That single curved line does look familiar, like the graceful bend of a palm frond you'd stitched onto a cushion cover. Maybe Tamar was right. Maybe the divine blueprint wasn't meant to be swallowed whole. Maybe it was a mountain to be climbed pebble by pebble, knot by knot, breath by terrified breath. You take a deep gulp of air, tasting dust and cedar. One palm frond, one curve. You could start there. Maybe. Your loom, finally assembled, stands taut and expectant under the flickering oil lamp. The warped threads shimmer like moonlit water eddy. In your lap, the precious shuttle holds the first thread of blue, the exact shade of the deep desert sky just before stars emerge. Bezalel's sketch fragment is pinned nearby. The sinuous curve of a single cherub wingtip. Just one curve, you told yourself, like a palm frond. You take a steadying breath, position the shuttle, and push it through the shed. Click, clack. The beater bar presses the thread home. Your heart lifts. There, the first stitch of the holy veil. It feels possible. The triumph lasts precisely 3 rows. You lean closer, squinting at the emerging pattern against Bezalel's sketch. The gentle curve of the wingtip isn't curving. It's lurching, like a drunken lizard trying to climb a dune. The blue threads sit stubbornly straight where they should arc with impossible celestial grace. Panic flutters in your chest. Asterisk, no. No. Asterisk, you fumble with the heddle hook, try to tease the errant thread sideways. They resist, snapping back into rigid lines. Tamar glances over from her own loom, humming softly. Stubborn little feathers. Her own section, a background field of pure scarlet, flows smooth and even. It mocks you. You grit your teeth. Unweaving is tedious, humbling work. Each thread pulled back feels like admitting defeat. The loom, so promising moments ago, now feels like a wooden beast holding your effort hostage. You pick out the 3 rows thread by thread, the blue yarn coiling accusingly in your lap. Asterisk, start again. Slower start. You concentrate fiercely, counting warped threads like sheep before sleep, angling the shuttle with exaggerated care. Click, clack, press. Click, clack, press. This time, the curve emerges sideways. It bulges awkwardly to the left, looking less like a wing and more like a deflated water skin. A frustrated groan escapes you. Tamar's humming pauses, trying to make it fly off the cloth already. She acts mildly. By the 5th attempt, the oil lamp burns low. Your eyes sting. Your shoulders knot like tangled yarn. Each failure feels heavier. The sacred blue thread, meant to veil the divine presence, feels like a noose tightening around your confidence. You recall the grub in the washing trough. At least it knew its place. You pick mercilessly at the latest aberration, the threads fraying slightly under your frantic hook. The intricate curve on Bezalel's parchment swims before your tired eyes. Less a design now, more a divine taunt. Asterisk, feel the space. Like breathing. Asterisk, Bezalel's words echo uselessly. Your breath feels shallow, trapped in your throat. Your fingers feel like clumsy sausages. On the 7th try, disaster strikes. Distracted by a shout outside the tent, your hand jerks. The shuttle snags. A horrible rip sound tears through the quiet. You freeze. A single vital warp thread, stretched too tight, has snapped near the top beam. Silence descends. Even Tamar stops humming. You stare at the broken end, dangling like a snapped tendon. Repairing a broken warp is a weaver's nightmare. It involves rethreading, retensioning, potentially unraveling everything back to start. Tears prick hotly behind your eyes. Holy cloth, holy disaster. Tamar says softly. She pushes her stool back and walks over. Instead of scolding, she peers at the damage. Top third, tricky. She rummages in her belt pouch, pulling out a tiny bone needle and a spool of almost invisible, impossibly fine flax thread. Hold the ends. Her voice is calm, practical. You numbly hold the 2 broken ends close together. Tamar's stained fingers work with surprising delicacy. She splices the thread with tiny, near-invisible knots, reinforcing the join with the fine flax. It takes minutes that feel like hours. When she's done, the join is barely noticeable. There, she says, patting the repaired thread. Good enough for the backside of an angel, probably. She doesn't leave. She pulls her stool beside yours. Show me the demon curve. You point miserably to Bezalel's sketch. Tamar studies it, then your loom. She reaches out, not touching your work, but tracing a finger just above the warped threads. See how it dips here? She murmurs. It's not a wall. It's a sigh. You're pushing the thread at it. She mimics a softer, flowing motion with her hand, like water finding its path down a rock. Let the yarn find the curve. Don't force it. Guide it. Like herding a shy kid goat, not wrestling a bull. You take a deep, shuddering breath. The air tastes of wool oil and lamp smoke. Let the yarn find the curve. You pick up the shuttle again, the blue thread feeling alien once more. You look at the design, not as rigid geometry, but as Tamar's sigh. You open the next shed, slide the shuttle through not with force, but with a gentle, guiding nudge. Click. The beater bar comes down, not a hammer blow, but a soft press. Clack. You look. The blue thread sits differently. Not perfect, but it flows. It hints at the graceful descent Tamar traced in the air. It's not a drunken lizard. It's the beginning of a wing. Tamar nods, a faint smile touching her lips. 10 times the charm, they say. She returns to her scarlet field, her humming starting again, softer now. You pick up the shuttle once more, your fingers trembling less. The next thread finds its place with a little more ease. The curve deepens, whispering of flight instead of wrestling. The broken warp thread holds. One breath, one gentle guide, one tiny imperfect curve, finally born not from force, but from letting go. You weave on, the click-clack, a quiet heartbeat in the lamplit tent. The holy veil begins, stitch by surrendered stitch. The sun climbs high, baking the tent canvas into a slack drumhead. Your fingers ache from the morning's wrestling match with celestial curves, just as your stomach rumbles loud enough to rival Jericho's trumpets. The rhythmic click-clack around you slows, then stops. Tamar stretches, her spine popping like a string of dried lentils. Praise the noon bell, she sighs, pulling a cloth bundle from under her stool. The air shifts. The holy intensity evaporates, replaced by the simple, urgent sacrament of lunch. You unwrap your own bundle. Yesterday's barley flatbread, a smear of tangy goat cheese, and your treasure, 2 palm-sized, sticky sweet date cakes your sister pressed into your hand this morning. The dates are plump, almost melting into the coarse grain flour, glistening with a precious drizzle of honey. You break off a corner, savoring the dense caramel sweetness. Pure comfort, pure Sinai. Across the narrow aisle separating looms, a woman with a distinctive blue tassel shawl of the Levite tribe unwraps her meal. Not flatbread, but perfectly round, pale discs, unleavened bread, but finer, thinner than anything you've seen. It smells faintly of roasted grain. And myrrh? She catches your curious glance. Manna flour, she says, her voice soft, almost melodic. Pressed very thin, baked quickly on hot stones. She holds one out. Miriam's method. Try. You hesitate. Levite food. Priest adjacent. Is it permitted? But her smile is warm, genuine. You swap half your date cake for one of her translucent, cracker-like discs. It snaps cleanly between your fingers. The taste is startling, simple, pure grain, but with a lingering, almost floral aftertaste. The myrrh, you ask, mouthful. She nods, just a whisper, for remembrance of the bitterness before the sweetness. She takes a tiny bite of your date cake, closing her eyes. Oh, that is Eden. She savors the sticky morsel like sacred incense. Hannah, she introduces herself. Spinner for the ephod cords. Mostly I untangle knots. Conversation ripples through the tent like a gentle brook. Near the entrance, a woman from Asher boasts about her olive paste, pressed from trees my grandfather planted near Tyre. Before Pharaoh, mind you, swapping dollops for slivers of salted fish from Deborah the dyer, who's miraculously cleaned her hands enough to eat. Tamar produces hard-boiled eggs speckled with cumin, bartering one for a smear of pungent, herb-infused cheese from a quiet woman of Reuben. The cheese smells like a goat's backside after rain, but Tamar pronounces it ambrosia. You learn snippets wrapped in bread. Hannah murmurs about the weight of the ark poles she helps wrap, how the acacia wood feels alive under the linen. The Asherite woman complains about the purple dye permanently staining her best tunic's cuff. Deborah gruffly offers her a secret poultice of crushed walnut husks and vinegar, muttering about waste of good Tyrian. The quiet Reubenite woman surprises you by demonstrating a faster way to wind your bobbins using just your knee and a smooth stone. For the small threads, she whispers, saves the fingers. You share your date cakes freely. The sticky sweetness, a universal currency of goodwill. In return, you collect flavors. The briny tang of Deborah's fish, the earthy punch of Tamar's cumin eggs, the herbal bite of the Reubenite cheese, and the ethereal simplicity of Hannah's manna wafers. Each bite, each shared morsel, knits the disparate group tighter. The tent hums not with the tension of holy work, but with the comforting murmur of community. The shared burdens of stiff shoulders, the laughter over a dropped olive pit, the quiet pride in a well-executed, not finally mastered. Hannah finishes her date cake, licking honey from her thumb with a small, satisfied sigh. He provides sweetness, she says softly, gesturing not just to the dates, but to the shared meal, the laughter, the swapped secrets. Even here, especially here, she carefully rewraps her remaining manna wafers. The bitterness makes the sweet taste sweeter, no? You look around the tent. Tamar is arguing good-naturedly with Deborah about the best way to remove cactus spines. The Asherite woman is showing the Reubenite how to braid a decorative edge into her shawl. Sunlight slants through the tent flap, illuminating dust motes dancing above the looms like lazy fireflies. The air smells of cumin, fish, olive oil, wool, and the faint, lingering ghost of purple dye. It's messy, it's human, it's profoundly ordinary. Yet, sitting there, sticky-fingered and content, Hannah's words resonate. The crushing weight of Bezalel's design, the stink of the vats, the ache in your back, the bitterness. This shared noon hour, the unexpected kindness, the taste of honey and myrrh on your tongue, the sweetness. Both were threads in the same tapestry. The presence wouldn't just dwell behind the veil you were weaving. It dwelled here, too, in the bartering of bread and the licking of honeyed thumbs. You take a last bite of Hannah's manna wafer. The floral aftertaste mingles with the memory of dates. Bitterness and sweetness. Holiness and lunch. You finish your meal, the knots in your shoulders a little looser. Ready to face the loom again. One curve, one knot, one shared moment of sweetness at a time. The afternoon rhythm is hypnotic. Click-clack, shuttle through, click-clack, beat a bar down. The blue wing curve flows now, a gentle river of thread finding its bed. You've learned Tamar's lesson. Guide, don't force. A fragile piece settles in your shoulders. Then, from the far end of the tent, a sound cuts through the calm like a knife through taut linen. A sharp, sickening twang, followed by a choked gasp and a cascade of wooden clatter. Every head snaps up. Rivka, a quiet weaver from Zebulun, stares aghast at her loom. The entire left side of her warp, stretched tight as a bowstring moments before, hangs limp and disastrously loose. Several broken threads dangle like severed puppet strings. The intricate pattern she'd been weaving, part of the embroidered cherubim's face, is now a chaotic jumble of crossed threads and sagging yarn. Her shuttle lies discarded on the dirt floor. The silence is absolute, thick with shared dread. A broken warp deep into the pattern is a weaver's worst nightmare realized. Rivka's face crumples. A single tear tracks through the dust on her cheek. She doesn't make a sound, but the despair radiating from her stiff posture is louder than any wail. You remember your own small warp snap, the cold terror of it. This is 10 times worse. Bezalel's design doesn't tolerate flaws. Would the entire section need to be scrapped? Days, maybe weeks of work undone? Before panic can fully root, Tamar is moving, not running, but striding with a purposeful calm that cuts through the tension. She kneels beside Rivka's ruined loom, her eyes scanning the damage with the focus of a battlefield surgeon. Right heddle rod slipped, she diagnoses, her voice low and steady. She points to a slightly warped wooden bar near the top of the loom frame. Pinch point. Too much tension on the pattern threads here. She touches the snapped ends gently. Clean breaks. Good. Means we can splice. She looks up, scanning the faces watching, frozen. Deborah, your finest flax thread. The bleached stuff. Hannah, bone needles, your smallest. Escherite, light. Bring that lamp closer. Reubinite, steady hands. Hold these ends just so. Her orders are quiet, precise, brooking no argument. The tent, moments ago paralyzed, springs into quiet action. Deborah rummages in her dye-stained bag, producing a spool of thread finer than a spider's web. Hannah offers delicate bone needles. The woman from Asher carefully positions an oil lamp, bathing the disaster zone in warm, focused light. The quiet Reubinite woman kneels opposite Tamar, her calloused fingers surprisingly deft as she gently holds the broken warp ends taut and aligned. Tamar works, her stained fingers, usually so rough with fleece or dye pots, move with astonishing delicacy. She splices the broken threads one by one, using tiny intricate knots and weaving in the reinforcing flax thread with microscopic stitches. Each repair is a miniature feat of engineering, strong yet nearly invisible. The silence deepens, punctuated only by Tamar's soft breathing, the scrape of bone needle on thread, and the gentle hiss of a lamp. Rivka watches, her tears drying, replaced by awe. You hold your own breath, willing the fragile repairs to hold. It takes time. The sun outside shifts, casting long shadows across the tent floor. Sweat beads on Tamar's forehead, but her hands remain steady. The Reubinite woman's arms tremble slightly from holding the tension, but she doesn't waver. Deborah mutters approval at a particularly clever splice. Hannah hums a fragment of a weaving song, low and soothing. You find yourself passing Tamar tools before she even asks, caught in the rhythm of the rescue. Finally, Tamar sits back, wiping her brow with the back of her wrist, leaving a faint smudge of dust. The repaired warp hangs taut again. The pattern threads, carefully re-threaded and tensioned, flow back into their intended paths. The cherubim's face, interrupted by chaos, is whole once more. Only the faintest, ghostly lines where the splices lie hint at the disaster. Tamar pats the repaired section. Stronger now, she declares, like a mended bone. She looks at Rivka. Check the shed. Rivka, hands trembling, carefully moves the header rods. The warp opens smoothly, cleanly. No snags, no resistance. She picks up her shuttle, threads it with a deep scarlet yarn, and pushes it through. Click. The beater bar comes down. Clack. The scarlet thread settles perfectly into the pattern, right where it belonged before the snap. A collective sigh ripples through the tent. Rivka looks at Tamar, her eyes shining with unshed tears of relief. "Thank you," she whispers, the words thick. Tamar shrugs, pushing herself stiffly to her feet. "Weaver's rule," she says, her voice returning to its usual gruff tone, though a hint of warmth lingers. One loom snaps, all hands mend. She stretches, her back cracking audibly. Now someone fetch the mallet. That heddle rod needs shimming before it betrays us all again. She glances around at the group, her gaze lingering on each face that helped. Deborah, Hannah, the Ashrite, the Reubonite you. A flicker of something like pride lights her eyes. "Not bad," she grunts, for a bunch of holy thread pushers. The rhythmic click-clack slowly resumes, tentatively at first, then gaining confidence. The crisis has passed, leaving behind not just a mended warp, but a deeper, unspoken bond. You look at your own loom, at the blue wing curve flowing smoothly. The thread felt fragile before. Now seeing the network of near-invisible splices holding Rivka's cherub together, you understand. The veil wasn't woven by perfect hands on perfect looms. It was woven by hands that knew how to break and how to mend, by threads that snapped and were spliced back stronger. The holy curtain wouldn't hide its scars. It would be made of them. You pick up your shuttle, the blue thread suddenly feeling less like a burden and more like a strand in a vast, resilient tapestry. Click-clack, you weave on. The rhythmic click-clack has become the steady heartbeat of your days, lulling you into a focused trance. The blue wing curves now flow with a confidence that still surprises you. Outside, dusk bleeds into indigo, the first stars pricking the vast desert sky. The oil lamps cast warm, jumping pools of light on the looms. Then a new sound intrudes, not a snap, but a distant rumble, like mountains shifting, or heavy furniture being dragged across heaven's floor. Tamar pauses mid-shuttle. Oh, she mutters, nostrils flaring. Smells like trouble. The smell hits a breath later. The sharp, electric tang of ozone, heavy with the promise of dust-drowning rain. A collective groan ripples through the tent. Rain is rare, precious. But now, with unfinished sections of the precious, undyed inner curtain laid out on drying racks in the adjacent work shed, before the groan fades, the first fat drops spat, spat, spat onto the taut tent canvas overhead, rapidly swelling into a drumming roar. The wind picks up, howling through the guy ropes, making the lamplight shudder violently. The shed, Deborah barks, already surging to her feet, her dye-stained apron flapping. Panic, cold and sharp, replaces the weaving trance. The drying shed is flimsy, palm fronds and worn canvas. The undyed linen sections, painstakingly woven, are vulnerable. A soaking could ruin them, causing shrinkage, mildew, or water stains no amount of holy intention could erase. No orders given. It's instinct. You're moving before thought catches up, sprinting with the others out of the weaving tent and into the chaotic dark. The rain hits like 1,000 cold needles, instantly plastering your hair to your scalp, your tunic to your skin. The ground, baked iron hard by days of sun, turns slick treachery underfoot. You skid, arms windmilling before regaining balance. The drying shed is already leaking. Rivulets of water snake down the inside walls. On the long racks, the precious lengths of creamy undyed linen. The future inner veil, the barrier before the Holy of Holies, glisten ominously under the flickering light of a single, guttering lamp Hannah holds aloft. Rivka and the Ashrite woman are already grabbing one end of the nearest panel. Lift, Deborah commands, Her voice cutting through the downpour's roar. You scramble to grab the other end. The linen is surprisingly heavy when wet, the fibers drinking the damp air greedily. It's pandemonium. Rain lashes through gaps in the roof. Mud splatters your ankles. The reubinite woman slips, landing hard on her knees, but somehow keeping her grip on the corner of cloth she holds. Move, move, Tamar bellows, wrestling another heavy section off its rack. The goal is the main weaving tent. Marginally drier, marginally more secure. But it's 20 paces away across a churning mud pit. You heave your section, the cold, damp linen dragging against your arms. The rain blinds you. Your sandals suck at the mud. Halfway across, a gust of wind whips the cloth like a sail, threatening to tear it from your grasp. You dig your heels in, leaning back, feeling the precious weave strain. Beside you, Hannah stumbles, the lamp she carries swinging wildly. The flame gutters, almost dies, casting monstrous, leaping shadows. For a heart-stopping moment, you see the cloth billow towards a puddle of churned mud. Down. It's the quiet, reubinite woman. She throws herself bodily onto the corner, threatening to dip into the mire, taking the impact on her shoulder, holding the linen aloft, just inches from ruin. You lurch forward, aided by Deborah grabbing your elbow. Together, you stagger the last few steps into the relative sanctuary of the weaving tent, dumping the dripping section onto the driest patch of floor you can find. Back and forth you race, a desperate, sodden relay team. Each section rescued feels heavier than the last. The undyed cloth is no longer creamy. It's gray with damp, smelling of wet dust and effort. Rivka trips, sprawling face first into the mud, but scrambles up instantly, clutching her bundle like a newborn. Tamar, hair plaster flat, roars encouragement or possibly curses at the storm. Deborah, ever practical, starts rigging makeshift lines inside the tent, hanging the rescued sections like banners of surrender. The final panel is the largest, heaviest. It takes 4 of you slipping and sliding. The rain hammering your backs, the wind trying to tear the sacred cloth from your numb fingers. You feel a stitch rip in your side, your breath ragged gasps. The mud tries to claim your sandals, but you lock eyes with Hannah across the billowing expanse of linen. Her lamp, miraculously still burning, reflects in her wide, determined eyes. You push, heave, stumble into the tent one last time. Gasping, dripping, coated in mud up to your knees, you collapse onto the dirt floor beside the last rescued section. The storm rages outside, shaking the tent. Inside, it's steamy, smelling of wet wool, wet linen, wet earth and sweat. The rescued cloth hangs everywhere, draped over beams, slung over unused looms, piled carefully on clean sacks. It looks like a shipwreck of sacred laundry. Silence falls, broken only by the drumming rain and the labored breathing of the weavers. Rivka wipes mud from her cheek, leaving streak. The Ashrite woman starts giggling, a high, slightly hysterical sound. Then Tamar chuckles, a deep rumble. Soon you're all laughing, exhausted, mud-caked, but victorious. The holy linen was safe, bruised, damp, but intact. Deborah surveys the draped cloth, hands on her hips. Well, she rasps, a ghost of a smile on her stained lips. Adds character. She points to a faint smudge of mud near one edge, where the reubinite woman had taken her dive. A little Sinai earth woven in, makes it authentic. You lean back against a loom post, the cold mud on your legs, a strange counterpoint to the warmth blooming in your chest. Outside, the storm begins to ease, the drumming softening to a steady patter. Inside, the rescued cloth hangs like spectral sails in the lamplit gloom. It wasn't pristine. It wasn't perfect. It was damp, muddy, and rescued by a bunch of rain-slicked, laughing women who'd thrown themselves into the mire for it. Somehow, that felt more fitting than flawless linen. The presence wouldn't dwell behind perfection. It would dwell behind cloth that knew the taste of rain and the grip of muddy hands. You close your eyes, listening to the rain and the shared breathing around you. The holy veil was drying, and it was beautiful. The rescued linen hangs like pale ghosts throughout the weaving tent, slowly releasing the scent of damp earth and effort into the lamplit air. You're carefully smoothing a stubborn wrinkle from a section draped near your loom when a different kind of chill cuts through the residual warmth of panic and rain. A hush falls thick and sudden, silencing the low chatter and the rhythmic click-clack of shuttles. Tamar stiffens beside you, her hands freezing mid-weave. You look up. Aaron stands framed in the tent entrance, not the distant, radiant figure glimpsed during assemblies, but here, in the mundane mess of the weaver's world. Rainwater drips from the hem of his high priestly robe onto the trampled earth floor. The intricate breastplate, with its 12 glowing stones, seems almost alien against the backdrop of hanging, damp linen and half-assembled looms. His face is unreadable, a mask of solemnity carved from desert stone. Behind him, 2 younger Levites hover, eyes wide, trying not to gawk at the chaos of rescued cloth. He moves slowly down the central aisle, his gaze sweeping over the draped sections. His steps are measured, deliberate. The air crackles with a tension different from the storm's fury. This is the scrutiny of the sacred. Your fingers, still grubby from mud, instinctively curl into your damp tunic. Deborah stops, fussing with a makeshift drying line, her usual gruffness replaced by wary stillness. Hannah lowers her eyes, lips moving silently. Even Tamar's defiant posture softens a fraction. This is the man who speaks with Moses, who enters the terrifying cloud. He stops before a large section of the inner veil panel Rivka had nearly ruined days before, now miraculously repaired and mostly dry. The creamy linen, meant to be flawless, undyed purity, still bears faint watermarks like shy constellations and the ghostly smudge of reubinite mud near one corner. Deborah's character. Aaron extends a hand, not to touch the sacred cloth directly, but to hover just above its surface. His fingers are long, pale, untouched by the coarseness of fleece or the bite of dye vats. They trace the air an inch above the fabric, following an invisible path. Silence stretches, taut as a warp thread. The only sound is the drip, drip, drip of water from the tent roof onto an empty bucket. You hold your breath. He examines the intricate pattern near the edge. Tamar's painstakingly spliced repairs, the subtle variations in thread tension where disaster was averted. His expression doesn't change. He moves to another section, the one you helped haul through the mud, its surface still holding the memory of rain. He repeats the motion, hand hovering, eyes scanning, face impassive. Then he stops before a panel you recognize, the one Tamar had just begun, its background field of pure, undyed linen stretched taut. He leans closer. His hovering hand lowers, almost imperceptibly. The tip of his index finger, pale and smooth, brushes the very edge of the cloth. Just once, a feather-like touch. He pulls his hand back as if stung, but his expression remains carved stone. He turns, his gaze sweeping over the assembled weavers, huddled like startled sheep, his eyes deep-set and shadowed in the lamplight, finally settle. Not on Tamar, not on Deborah, but on you. You feel it like a physical pressure. Your mud-stained hands feel suddenly huge, clumsy, profane. The cloth, he says. His voice isn't loud, but it fills the tent, clear and resonant, cutting through the dripping silence. It carries the weight of pronouncement for the inner veil. He pauses, letting the words hang. Your stomach clenches. Asterisk, too dirty? Too flawed? The mud? The watermarks? The near-invisible splices. Asterisk, you brace for condemnation, for the crushing weight of divine rejection transmitted through this stern, sacred man. It is, Aaron begins, his gaze still fixed on you, though his words seem addressed to the air itself, too stiff. He says it flatly, matter-of-factly, like observing the weather. The hangings must move, like breath, like water. He lifts his hand again, making a subtle, flowing gesture in the air, utterly unlike the rigid precision of Bezalel's diagrams. This resists. Sinai wind blows hard. It must yield, not crackle. Too stiff, the words hang, absurd and unexpected, not unclean, not flawed, not rejected, just stiff. You blink. Tamar lets out a breath she'd been holding, a soft, incredulous huh. Deborah's shoulders relax minutely. Rivka stifles a nervous hiccup. Aaron turns his head slightly, addressing one of the hovering Levites without looking away from the cloth. Bring the fuller's clay, the white silk from the Wadi Bend, and the beating paddles, the smooth ones. His gaze finally lifts from the cloth and sweeps over the weavers again. There's no anger, no disappointment, just an implacable requirement. It must soften. He states it as a simple fact of existence, like the sun rising, before the setting. He doesn't explain which setting. He doesn't need to. He turns and walks back towards the entrance, his robe whispering against the dirt floor, leaving behind the scent of holy oil and the echo of his impossible demand. Soften the unyielding. The silence he leaves behind is different. Not dread, but bewildered exhaustion. You look at the vast expanse of rescued, painstakingly woven linen hanging heavy and, yes, stiff in the lamplit tent. Fuller's clay, beating paddles. Before sunset, Tamar pushes herself off her stool, walking over to feel the edge Aaron touched. She rubs the linen between her thumb and forefinger, frowning. Feels like linen always feels, she mutters. Sturdy, solid. She looks at you, then at the others, a spark of defiance kindling in her eyes, mixed with sheer fatigue. Well, holy brothers and sisters, looks like we're not done wrestling the veil tonight. She cracks her knuckles, the sound loud in the quiet. Anyone know a good lullaby for beating holy laundry? The absurdity of it. Rescued from a storm only to be ordered to beat the stiffness out before nightfall, mixes with the lingering terror of Aaron's presence. Yet beneath it a strange relief. It wasn't rejected. It just needed softening. Like Sinai wind shaping stone. Like life shaping hands. You touch the cloth near where Aaron's finger brushed. It does feel crisp, unyielding. You think of the desert wind, how it could scream and tear, but also how it could sigh, soft as breath, over the dunes. The veil needed to hold the scream, but flow with the sigh. You pick up the edge Tamar tested. Too stiff. You sigh. Time to learn how to make holiness bend. The fuller's clay arrives in gritty sacks, smelling of ancient riverbeds. It's not clay like you'd patch a tent with. This is fine, chalky silt, cool and slightly greasy to the touch. Deborah dumps a heap into a massive stone basin. Water, she rasps. Not too much. Think thick goat's milk yogurt. You haul skins, pouring until the mixture becomes a slick, pale sludge. The rescued inner veil sections loom like pale giants waiting for baptism. Aaron's words echo. Asterisk, it must yield. Not crackle, asterisk. Tamar picks up a wooden paddle. Wide, smooth, shaped like a giant flattened spoon. Right, she grunts, hefting it. No aruix. It's not about beating sin out of it. It's about persuasion. She dunks a corner of the stiff linen into the cool, gritty slurry. It resists, floating stiffly for a moment, before reluctantly drinking in the moisture, darkening like thirsty sand. She lifts the sodden corner, heavy now, draping it over smooth, rounded stone Deborah hauled in. Then Tamar begins. It's not violent. It's rhythmic. A steady metronomic thump, thump, thump. The smooth-wood face of the paddle lands flat, spreading outwards with gentle pressure. Thump, lift, reposition. Thump, lift, reposition. It looks deceptively simple. Like kneading dough, you volunteer next. The paddle is heavier than it looks. You dunk your section, feeling the cold slurry seep through to your fingers. Dragging the waterlogged linen onto the stone is like wrestling a sleepy calf. You raise the paddle, bring it down. Thud. It lands awkwardly off-center. The linen bunches, a ripple of protest running through the weave. Easy, Tamar murmurs beside you, not stopping her own steady rhythm. Like coaxing knots loose, not whacking a fly. You adjust, lift, aim for the center of the damp expanse. Bring the paddle down with a fluid motion. Letting the weight do the work, pressing outwards. Thump. This time, the linen yields beneath it, the fibers relaxing under the pressure, releasing trapped air in a faint sigh. A tiny cloud of silk puffs up. You find the rhythm. Thump, lift, shift, thump, lift, shift. The cold slurry numbs your fingers. The muscles in your shoulder protest. But there's a hypnotic quality to it. Thump. The stiff cloth begins to soften under your touch, the harsh angles of the weave blurring, becoming pliable. Thump. You think of Aaron's flowing gesture. Asterisk like breath, like water. Asterisk you press, not pound. You persuade, not punish. The paddle becomes an extension of your hand, a tool of yielding, not force. Around the basin, others join. Rivka works a section nearby, her movements tentative at first, then gaining confidence. Hannah hums softly, her beat syncing unconsciously with Tamar's steady thump. Deborah oversees, occasionally dipping her hand into the slurry, testing its consistency, adding a sprinkle of silt or a splash of water. Too thin, it slides off. Too thick, it cakes, she instructs gruffly. Like good dye, balance. You work on a section near the infamous mud stain. The gritty slurry seems to embrace the earthy mark, not erase it, working it deeper into the fiber story. Thump. The stiffness around the stain softens. Thump. The cloth becomes supple, draping naturally over the curve of the stone as you work. You remember hauling this very piece through the churning mud, its weight threatening to pull you under. Now, under the rhythmic persuasion of the paddle, it feels lighter, more alive. It's learning to flow. Sweat beads on your forehead despite the coolness of the slurry. The scent of wet earth and stone fills the air, replacing the storm's damp, and the lingering goat will smell. It's primal grounding. Thump. Lift. Shift. Thump. The lamplight flickers on the wet, pale surfaces. The rhythmic percussion becomes the tense new heartbeat. Slower, deeper than the click-clack of the loom. A bass note to the weaving's melody. After what feels like hours, Tamar stops. She runs a hand over her section, now glistening and limp. She pinches a fold. It drapes softly, fluidly, like water flowing over rock. No crackle, no resistance, just a gentle, silent fall. There, she says, a quiet satisfaction in her voice. Learned to breathe. She looks at your section, nodding approval. Yours too. Got the hang of holy persuasion. You lift your paddle from a cloth. The linen clings to the stone for a moment, then releases, settling into soft folds. You touch it. It's cool, damp, heavy with silt and water, but utterly transformed. The stiffness is gone. It feels alive under your fingers, yielding, receptive. It would move with the desert wind, sigh with the breeze, not fight it. You think of Aaron's impassive face, his hovering finger, his impossible demand. Soften the unyielding. Looking at the cloth flowing like liquid moonlight over the stone, you realize it wasn't just the linen learning to yield. It was you. The relentless drive for rigid perfection, the fear of flaws, the tension in your own spirit. Thump by rhythmic thump, it too was softening, learning to drape over the stones of Sinai's demands with a little more grace. You dip the next stiff corner into the cool, forgiving slurry. Thump. The rhythm of surrender begins again, beating holiness into pliable breathing form. The rhythmic thump of the paddles has faded, replaced by the softer drip-drip of Fuller's slurry from the now supple linen hanging on fresh lines inside the tent. A deep, shared exhaustion hangs in the air, thick as the scent of wet earth. You're gently wringing excess silt from a corner of your section, your fingers numb and pruned, when a new sound shatters the quiet. Not rain, not wind, a distant roar, swelling like a flash flood in a dry wadi. Cheers, shouts, the frenzied, metallic clang of hammers. Tamar freezes, a damp linen fold clutched in her hands. Her head snaps towards the tent entrance. Listening, Deborah drops the smooth stone she was cleaning, her stained face paling beneath the grime. That's the camp center, Hannah whispers, her melodic voice tight with dread. The rhythmic clanging intensifies, underscored by a pulsing, chaotic drumbeat and wild, ululating cries. It sounds like celebration, but a celebration gone feral, untethered. A cold prickle runs down your spine, unrelated to the damp linen. Rivka edges towards the tent flap, peering out into the dusk. The fiery glow from the direction of the sound flickers against her wide, frightened eyes. Fire, she breathes. Big fire. And dancing? They're dragging something. Metal? Her voice trembles. The noise swells, crashing against the fragile piece of the weaving tent like waves against a sandcastle. Shouts become distinct, raucous chants. This asterisk brought us out of Egypt. This asterisk is our strength. Laughter, wild and sharp, cuts through the night. The clanging hammers beat a frantic, discordant anthem. It's the sound of a people unraveling, the sound of a golden calf. A wave of nausea washes over you. Images flash. Moses on the mountain, wrapped in terrifying cloud and silence. Aaron, who stood here hours ago, demanding yielding cloth. Now what? Out there? Part of this? The weight of the softened linen in your hands suddenly feels like lead. The sacred thread, the meticulous knots, the rescue cloth, the beaten suppleness, what was it for? While you wrestled stiffness and storms, the camp dissolved into molten idolatry just beyond the tent walls. Tamar slams her fist down on a drying rack, making the wood groan. Fools, she hisses, the word raw and jagged. Spoiled children. Her usual gruffness is stripped bare, revealing fury and a deeper, colder fear. Deborah stands rigid, her fists clenched, knuckles white against the dye stains. She doesn't speak. Her silence is more terrible than any curse. Hannah sinks onto her stool, burying her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. The quiet Reubinite woman stares at the dirt floor, her expression unreadable, but a muscle jumps in her jaw. The cacophony outside is a physical assault. It mocks the silent, painstaking work within. It mocks the presence these very curtains were meant to veil. You look at the shuttle resting on your loom, the blue thread of the cherub wing still half-woven. The intricate curve, once a challenge, now feels absurd, pointless, a delicate embroidery on the edge of an abyss. The urge to scream, to run out and join the mindless roar, or to flee into the dark desert, is a physical pressure in your chest. Your fingers twitch, wanting to tear the half-finished veil from a loom. Then Tamar moves, not towards the entrance, not away. She walks stiffly to her own loom. She sits. Her back is ramrod straight. She doesn't look at any of you. Her gaze fixes on the complex pattern emerging on her frame, the scarlet background, the beginnings of gold couching. With deliberate, almost brutal slowness, she picks up her shuttle. She threads it. The noise outside reaches a crescendo, a wild shriek, a gong struck with ecstatic force. Tamar takes a breath, a deep, shuddering breath that seems to pull in the chaos and hold it. Then, click, she pushes the shuttle through the shed. The sound is small, fragile against the roaring tide outside. Clack. The beater bar comes down, firm, precise. Click, clack. She doesn't look up. She doesn't speak. She just weaves. One thread, one beat. A tiny, defiant act of order in the heart of madness. The sound is a lifeline. You stare at her, at the rhythmic movement of her hands, the steady click-clack cutting through the dissonance like a knife through smoke. Deborah watches her for a long moment. Then, without a word, the dyer turns away from the tent flap. She walks back to the basin of Fuller's slurry. She dunks her hands into the cool, gritty mixture. She picks up a section of the softened veil Hannah had been wringing. She begins to gently, methodically, smooth out a wrinkle. Her movements are slow, intentional. Hannah lifts her head, tears still wet on her cheeks. She looks from Tamar to Deborah. She wipes her face with her sleeve, smearing dirt and tears. She stands. She walks to her own small frame, holding the delicate cords for the ephod. She picks up her spindle. She sets it spinning. A low, soft whirring joins the click-clack. Rivka turns away from the entrance, the fiery glow still reflecting in her eyes, but now mixed with something else. Resolve? Desperation? She walks to your side. She picks up the shuttle you'd abandoned. She holds it out to you, her hand steady despite the din outside. Her eyes meet yours. They hold no judgment, only shared, bone-deep understanding. Asterisk, this is our ground. This is our work. Asterisk, the roar outside is deafening. The hammers clang. The drums pulse. The voices howl. But inside the tent, a different sound builds. Click-clack. The soft whir of a spindle. The wet shusha cloth being smoothed and slurry. The quiet rasp of Deborah's breath. It's not loud. It's easily drowned. But it's there. A stubborn, rhythmic heartbeat, refusing to be silenced. You take the shuttle from Rivka. The blue thread feels cool, familiar. You look at the half-finished curve of the cherub wing. You look at Tamar, weaving as if the world depended on this single scarlet thread. Maybe it did. Maybe holiness was in the absence of chaos. but the choice to weave within it, to make the next stitch, to smooth the next wrinkle, to spin the next cord, not because the noise wasn't terrifying, but because the silence of giving up would be worse. You positioned the shuttle. You open the shed. The roar outside surges, a wave threatening to engulf everything. You push the blue thread through. Click. The beater bar comes down. Clack. The thread settles. One curve, one breath, one defiant act of making. While the world unmakes itself just outside the door. You weave on. In the eye of the storm, you weave on. And in the shared, silent focus of the others, smoothing, spinning, stitching, you find an anchor. The veil would be finished, not in spite of the madness, but amidst it, one fragile, sacred thread at a time. The dissonance outside is a living beast, gnawing at the tent walls. The clanging hammers, the frenzied drums, the raw-throated shouts, they vibrate in your teeth, in the bones of the loom. Yet inside, the fragile counterpoint holds. Click-clack. Tamar's shuttle moving with metronomic precision. Whir. Hannah's spindle a low, insistent hum. Shush-shush. Deborah smoothing the softened veil in its gritty bath. Your own heartbeat thuds in your ears, almost loud enough to drown the chaos. But your hands move. Click, open the shed. Clack, press the blue thread home. The cherub wing grows, curved by defiant curve. An island of order in a sea of madness. Hours bleed. The fiery glow from the camp center casts monstrous, leaping shadows on the tent canvas. The noise doesn't lessen. It mutates. The initial frenzy hardens into a relentless, pounding rhythm. The sound of idolatry settling into its skin. Chants rise and fall, punctuated by bursts of raucous laughter or sharp, animalistic cries. It feels less like celebration, now more like possession. Then a new sound cuts through. Running feet, frantic, stumbling. The tent flap bursts open. A young boy, maybe 10, gasps for breath, his eyes wide with terror, reflecting the hellish glow. He's one of the water carrier's sons. He scans the weavers, his gaze frantic, finally landing on Tamar, a figure of known, gruff solidity. They took him, the boy chokes out, pointing a trembling finger back towards the infernal light. Levi, my brother, men with knives, they said, thus says the Lord. He doubles over, retching dry sobs onto the dirt floor. They're killing anyone who won't bow. The words land like stones in still water. Killing. The fragile rhythm inside the tent shatters. Hannah's spindle clatters to the floor. Deborah's hands freeze mid-smoothing, silk dripping from her fingers. Rivka lets out a small, choked whimper. The boy's terror is a physical thing, thick and sour in the air. The horror outside isn't just noise anymore. It's spilled blood. It's brother against brother. Tamar doesn't stop weaving. Click-clack. Her face is granite in the flickering light. Only the whiteness of her knuckles, gripping the shuttle, betrays the storm within. Click-clack. Where? She asks, her voice low, dangerously calm. Be by the big fire, the boy sobs. The calf, it's huge. Shining. They there he can't finish. Dissolving into shuddering gasps. Click-clack. Tamar's gaze sweeps the tent, meeting each pair of terrified eyes. Deborah's are burning coals. Hannah's are pools of pure dread. Rivka looks like she might faint. The Reubinite woman has closed her eyes, lips moving soundlessly. You feel the blue thread slip from your numb fingers. Killing. The word echoes, hollowing you out. Your brother, your cousin, your neighbor. Could your own tent flap be next? Click-clack. The sound is unnaturally loud in the new, heavy silence. Tamar pushes the shuttle through again. Clack. She sets the beater bar down with deliberate finality. She stands. Her movements are slow, heavy, like lifting mountains. She walks to the terrified boy, crouches before him. Her dye-stained hands surprisingly gentle as she grips his trembling shoulders. Listen to me, tadpole, she says, her voice rough but steady. You stay here, under Deborah's loom. Don't move. Don't breathe loud. Understand? The boy nods frantically, tears streaming. Tamar guides him towards the bulky frame of Deborah's largest loom, shoving aside baskets of bobbins. In. Now. He scrambles into the shadowed space beneath the warp threads, curling into a ball, his ragged breathing the only sound. Tamar straightens. She looks around at the frozen weavers. Her eyes are dark, unreadable pools reflecting the distant fire. The work, she says, the words flat, absolute. The work stands. She doesn't say it's a shield. She doesn't say it's a prayer. She doesn't need to. The command is in her stance, in the set of her jaw, asterisk weave, smooth, spin. This is the ground we hold, asterisk. Deborah is the first to move. She draws a deep, ragged breath that sounds like tearing cloth. She plunges her hands back into the fuller slurry, grabbing a section of the veil with fierce intensity. Shush, shush. The wet, rhythmic sound is an act of defiance. Hannah bends, fumbling for her fallen spindle. Her hands shake violently, but she sets the world spinning. Or, it's wobbly, uneven, but it spins. Rivka wipes her face, smearing tears and dust, and picks up a drop bobbin. Her fingers tremble as she starts rewinding tangled blue thread. The Reubinite woman opens her eyes. They are dry hard. She picks up her bone needle and a scrap of cloth, beginning to mend a small tear with fierce, tiny stitches. You look down at your own loom, the blue cherub wing weights half-curved. The noise outside seems louder now, sharper, the clang of metal. A sudden, distant scream that cuts off abruptly. Your stomach churns. Fear is a cold serpent coiling around your spine, killing. The boy's sobs under the loom are a soft counterpoint to the horror. You reach for the shuttle. Your fingers are ice. You fumble, almost dropping it. You force air into your lungs. Click. You open the shed. The space between the warped threads feels like a chasm. Outside, the drums pound. A relentless heartbeat of madness. Clack. You press the blue thread home. It feels insignificant, meaningless, a tiny stitch against a tidal wave of blood and fire. But you look at Tamar, standing like a sentinel near the entrance, her gaze fixed on the hellish glow beyond the flap, her hands resting on her hips, ready. You look at Deborah, scrubbing the holy cloth as if scouring sin itself. You look at Hannah, spinning her fragile thread into the terror-filled air. You look at Rivka, winding her bobbin, each turn a small act of courage. You look at the Reubinite woman's fierce, focus mending, the boy's muffled sob under the loom. Click, clack, you weave, not because the horror isn't real, not because the fear isn't paralyzing, but because the alternative, the silence of surrender, the unraveling of this small, stubborn order, feels like a deeper death. The blue thread becomes a lifeline, a tiny anchor in storm. Each click-clack is a whispered refusal to let the darkness win. Here, in this lamplit tent where the veil is taking shape, thread by fragile, defiant thread, while the world burns just outside. The cacophony of the night has bled into a sickly dawn. The drums and shrieks are gone, replaced by a thick, suffocating silence broken only by the distant wail of mourners and the lowing of unsettled hurts. The air inside the tent hangs heavy with the smell of cold ashes and dread. You sit stiffly at your loom, the blue shuttle frozen in your hand. The cherub wings curve feels alien, meaningless, after the horrors whispered by the shadows. The boy still huddles under Deborah's loom, a silent, trembling lump. Tamar stands sentinel near the entrance flap, which she's tied shut. Her face is gray with exhaustion, etched with lines you've never seen. Outside, the unnatural quiet presses in, heavier than the hammering ever was. A new sound splits the oppressive hush. Not a shout, not a drum, a sharp crystalline crack. It echoes across the camp, impossibly loud, impossibly final, like the spine of the world snapping. It resonates in your teeth, vibrates in the bones of the loom frame. The silence that follows is deeper, colder, absolute. Tamar flinches, her hand flying to the dagger at her belt. Deborah drops the veil section she'd been smoothing. It lands in the fuller's slurry with a wet slap, forgotten. Hannah's spindle stops dead. Even the boy, under the loom, stifles a whimper. You feel the sound reverberate in your chest cavity. A physical blow. What was that? Before the question fully forms, a different sound rises. A voice. Moses' voice, but not the measured tones of the lawgiver. This is raw, guttural, a roar torn from the depths of a shattered mountain. It's too far away to make out words, but the tone is unmistakable. Fury, grief, utter devastation. It rolls over the camp like thunder after lightning, shaking the very dust from the tent poles. And silence crashes down again, thicker, strangler. It's a silence of breath held too long, of a world waiting for the sky to fall. You stare at the blue thread in your hand, its vibrant color suddenly garish against the gray light filtering through the canvas. The intricate curve of the cherub wing feels like a cruel joke. What point was there in weaving veils for a presence whose very covenant might line shards? Tamar moves, not toward the flap, but deeper into the tent. Her steps are heavy leaden. She stops before the section of the inner veil you'd helped beat supple, now hanging limp and damp. She reaches out, not to touch the sacred cloth, but to the air just above it, mirroring Aaron's gesture hours before. Her stained, work-roughened fingers hover. Her face, usually so expressive in its gruffness, is utterly blank. A mask of stone chipped from Sinai itself. The silence stretches. Seconds feel like hours. The weight of Moses' roar, that terrible crack, presses down. You imagine it. The stone tablets, borne down the mountain with such awe, dashed against the unyielding earth. The words of God, scattered like pebbles. The promise fractured. The sound hadn't just been stone breaking. It had been the sound of hope breaking. A single tear escapes Tamar's eye. It tracks a clean line through the grime on her cheek, splashing silently onto the dirt floor beside the hanging veil. She doesn't wipe it away. She doesn't move. Her hand still hovers. The tear feels louder than any sob. Deborah makes a small sound in her throat, a choked rasp. She turns away abruptly, picking up the veil section she dropped. She dunks it back into the fuller slurry with unnecessary force, sloshing the chalky liquid over the rim of the basin. Shush, shush. The sound is harsh, jagged, in the suffocating quiet. Hannah bends, mechanically picking up her spindle. She tries to set spinning. Her fingers fumble. The whirl clatters uselessly against the frame. She stares at it, uncomprehending. You look down at your own hands. The blue thread is slick with cold sweat. The intricate pattern on Bezalel's sketch fragment pinned nearby. The interlacing cherubim wings, the pomegranates, the bells, swims before your eyes. Were they just lines? Meaningless marks on skin? The covenant was dust. The presence. What presence awaited a veil now? The boy stirs under the loom. A rustle of fear in the stillness. The sound breaks the paralysis. Tamar lowers her hand. The hovering gesture collapses. She turns, her gaze sweeping the tent, landing finally on you, on the frozen shuttle in your hand. Her eyes, red-rimmed, but dry now, hold a terrible emptiness. Then, slowly, like a mountain grinding against its own weight, she walks back to her loom. She sits. She stares at the complex scarlet and gold pattern before her, a fragment of the ephod meant to hold the stones representing the tribes. Tribes now stained with brothers' blood. She doesn't pick up the shuttle immediately. She just stares at the threads, at the pattern, at the terrible, echoing void left by that crack. Outside, the silence remains a shroud over the camp. Inside the tent, the silence is different. It's the silence after the last hammer blow falls. The silence of foundations turned to rubble. The silence of a loom holding half a sacred garment. Its purpose as shattered as the stones on the slopes above. Tamar reaches out. Her calloused finger traces a single, unfinished line of gold couching on her work. A line meant to encircle a sardius stone. Benjamin or Dan, it doesn't matter now. Her finger trembles just once. Then she curls it into a fist, resting it on the loom frame. She doesn't weep. She doesn't rage. She sits. She stares. And the silence of the tent deepens, filled only by the ghost of breaking stone and the unspoken question hanging heavier than any veil. What do we weave now? The silence after the breaking stone hangs like burial linen over the camp. No drums, no wails, just the lowing of confused cattle and the oppressive weight of shattered stone and shattered faith. In the weaving tent, the air is thick with suspended breath. Tamar sits frozen before her loom, her fist clenched on the frame, knuckles white. The intricate gold couching meant for the ephod lies unfinished, a constellation of potential snuffed out. The boy under Deborah's loom whimpers softly. Outside, the gray dawn light feels like ashes. Then a sound, small, insistent, a drip, 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 water falling from the damp inner veil section Deborah had abandoned in the Fuller's slurry basin. It hits the pooled slurry below with a soft, rhythmic plink, plink, plink. It's mundane, earthbound, utterly disconnected from the cosmic fracture on the mountain. Yet, in the crushing silence, it's a lifeline. Deborah stirs first. Her gaze, fixed on the dirt floor, lifts toward the sound. She stares at the dripping veil, the water cutting clean tracks through the gritty film on its surface. Plink. Her jaw tightens, with a movement that seems to cost her immense effort. She pushes herself away from the basin's edge. She doesn't look at Tamar. She doesn't look at any of you. She walks stiffly to the pile of raw, gray-brown goat fleece stacked against the tent wall. She grabs a large handful, the coarse fibers prickling even against her calloused palms. She carries it back to her stool near the basin. She sits. She picks up her bone picker. She dunks the fleece into the cold, leftover slurry. Squeeze, scrape, flick. The familiar, gritty rhythm is jarring. Squeeze. Muddy water streams. Scrape. Twigs and seeds fall. Flick. Dross into the basket. It's the first work, the humblest work, cleaning the raw material. Not crafting sacred veils, not couching gold. Just making dirty wool slightly less dirty. Squeeze. Scrape. Flick. Hannah watches Deborah. Tears still glisten on her cheeks, but her breathing steadies. She bends, picks up her fallen spindle. She doesn't try to spin the fine ephod cord. Instead, she pulls out a coarse hank of undyed flax, the kind used for tent ropes for sacks. She attaches it to the spindle's hook. She sets the heavy whirl spinning. Whir, a lower, rougher hum than before. The sound of utility, not ornament. Whir, Rivka sniffles, wiping her nose on her sleeve. She looks at the tangled blue bobbin in her lap. She picks at the knot, her fingers clumsy with residual terror. She tugs. It tightens. She takes a shaky breath, slows down, picks more carefully. Asterisk, one loop. Pull. Another loop. Pull. Asterisk, the knot begins to loosen. The boy under the loom shifts, his ragged breathing easing slightly. He peers out from the shadows beneath the warped threads, his eyes huge in his grimy face, watching Deborah's scraped fleece, listening to Hannah's spindle whir. You look at your own loom. The half-curved blue wing of the cherub stares back. Bezalel's fragment of divine geometry. Meaningless now, or essential? The covenant was broken. The stones were dust. But the need remained. The need for shelter, for order, for something to hold back the terrifying vastness, even if the words were gone. The veil wasn't just for a presence defined by law. It was for the space the presence might yet fill, for the silence after the breaking. Your fingers, cold and stiff, uncurl from around the shuttle. The smooth wood feels alien. You look at the blue thread, vibrant against the gray warp. Click. The sound of opening the shed is loud in the tent, but not jarring. It feels necessary. You push the shuttle through. The blue thread slides, a streak of impossible color against the gloom. Clack. The beater bar comes down. The thread settles into the pattern. One more curve, imperfect, fragile, done in the shadow of broken stone. But it's there. Tamar doesn't move immediately. She stares at the unfinished gold thread on her loom. The couching meant for Benjamin or Dan, tribe stained. She closes her eyes. A tremor runs through her shoulders. Then, slowly, deliberately, she uncurls her fist. She picks up the tiny bone needle used for couching. She doesn't pick up the gold thread. She picks up a spool of ordinary, undyed linen thread. She threads the needle. She positions it not on the ephod fragment, but on the sturdy linen backing of her own weaving apron. Near a small tear at the hem, she begins to mend it. Small, precise, utilitarian stitches. Asterisk poke, pull, poke, pull, asterisk. The tent fills with sound again. Not the click-clack of holy purpose, but the squeeze-scrape of cleansing fleece, the whir of spinning rough cord, the poke-pull of mending, the soft click-clack of a single blue thread finding its place. It's the sound of life insisting, the sound of hands doing the next thing, the necessary thing, when all the grand designs lie in ruins. The sound of threads, ordinary and sacred, holding the trembling sky together. One stubborn stitch, one scraped fleece, one spun strand at a time. You weave the next curve. Deborah scrapes the next clump of dirt. Hannah spins the next length of rope. Tamar mends her apron. The boy watches his breathing evening out. Outside, the ash-gray dawn brightens imperceptibly towards day. The broken stones remain. The work continues. The camp breathes again, but the air is thinner. Moses descended with new stone words, his face veiled against a residual holiness too fierce for mortal eyes. Work resumes on the tabernacle, but the euphoria is gone. Your hands move with a new reverence, a quiet awareness of the chasm between intention and frailty. The blue wing flows steadily now, its curve a testament to persistence. Then, during a water break, you overhear two porters unloading acacia logs nearby. Carved cherubim wings this wide. One boasts arms spread impossibly far. Bezi says the ark's base is like a giant's footstool. The other scoffs. Now my cousin's on the overlay crew. Says it's smaller than my wife's bread trough. You file this away, a harmless scrap of camp gossip. Days later, the veil section nears completion. You stand back, admiring the interlaced cherubim wings, their blue and purple threads flowing like captured twilight. Tamar nods approval. Winged it nicely, kid. But as you prepare to cut the final threads, a cold knot forms in your stomach. You glance at Bezalel's sketch fragment pinned to your loom frame. The one with the ark's dimensions noted in tiny script. 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide. Then you recall the porter's exaggerated gestures. Giant's footstool. Your eyes dart to your woven panel. The cherubim wings stretch majestically. But are they spaced for an ark twice that size? Panic flutters. You grab a measuring cord, fingers trembling. You count warp threads, convert to cubits. The space between the cherubim, the void meant to hover over the mercy seat, yawns far too wide. Your calculations, warped by camp chatter, birthed a celestial gap fit for a pagan colossus. Not Yahweh's compact, fierce holiness. The blood drains from your face. Rivka notices your stillness. What's wrong? Her voice cracks your dread open. You point mutely at the sketch, then at your weaving. Rivka's eyes widen. She whistles low, a sound usually reserved for scorpion sightings. Tamar stomps over. Let's see the damage. She squints at your measurements, then at the loom. Her grunt is volcanic. Well, gave the presence room to stretch, didn't you? The joke falls flat. Unpicking weeks of intricate weaving is unthinkable. The deadline looms like Sinai at dusk. Deborah abandons her dye vats. Hannah sets aside her spindle. They gather around your loom, a silent council of wrinkled brows. The Reubinite woman traces the flawed expanse with a calloused finger. Could we add another cherub? Hannah ventures weakly. Tamar snorts. And have Bezi say we're inventing angels? No thanks. Deborah steps forward, her dye-stained fingers brushing the too-wide gap. The problem isn't the space, she rasps. It's the emptiness. She looks at you, then at the others. What if we fill it with something only he sees? A puzzled silence follows. Deborah rolls her eyes. The reverse side, the back faces the holy place, not the seat. Who cares if its cherubim are cozy? Understanding dawns. You'd woven the pattern identically on both sides, a point of pride. But Deborah was right. Only the front, facing the mercy seat, needed perfect proportions. The back could adapt. We need a floating panel, Deborah declares. A patch for the patchless. The solution unfolds like a tapestry repair. 1. Salvage asterisk. Carefully cut the oversized section behind the front cherubim, leaving their perfect faces intact. 2. Bridge asterisk. Weave a new, narrower panel on a spare frame. Just plain scarlet linen, no pattern. 3. Invisible joint asterisk. Seam the new scarlet backing to the original's reverse side using the tiniest stitches ever attempted, hiding the seam behind the front cherubim's wings. It's audacious. Desperate, Tamar barks orders. Hannah, spin the finest joining thread, thinner than a gnat's whisper. Rivka, set up the small loom. Reubinite, brew strong tea. This needs eagle eyes. You work by lamplight, hearts pounding. Rivka weaves a scarlet bridge at record speed. her usual calm replaced by fierce focus. Hannah presents a thread so fine it seems spun for moonlight. Deborah supervises the surgery, her stained hand steady as she guides your needle. Smaller stitches, smaller. Imagine your sewing mist. As dawn bleeds into the tent, you make the final stitch. You turn the panel over. The front is flawless. The cherubim wings touch exactly where they should, framing the sacred void with celestial precision. Only you know the scarlet secret hidden behind the blue, the humble patch holding heaven's proportions together. Tamar inspects it, her nose inches from the fabric. She grunts. From the front? Perfect. From the back? She shrugs. Looks like we gave the holy place a bit of extra lining. Practical. She claps your shoulder, her grip firm. Mistakes happen. Holiness hides a lot of clever stitches. You run your hand over the front cherubim. Their thread smooth and true. The gap over the mercy seat is perfect now, not a giant span, but the precise, intimate distance ordained for awe. The back holds its scarlet scar, a hidden testament to human error and communal grace. You realize the veil wasn't just separating holy from most holy. It was weaving mercy into the very fabric of the law. A divine willingness to meet flawed hands halfway, stitching redemption into the backing of everything. The scarlet scar hidden behind the cherubim wings is your secret talisman. You move through the weaving days with lighter hands, the dread of perfection replaced by the quiet grace of mended things. Even the goat will smells less offensive. Then one scorching noon, as you wrestle a snarled bobbin, blue and purple threads knotted like vipers in a basket. Your elbow bumps a small clay jar perched on your loom's edge. It tumbles, spilling not beads or pins, but a handful of dull copper coins. A foreigner's payment thrust into your hand weeks ago for patching his torn saddle blanket. Most are crude lumps, but one catches the light. Thin, perfectly round, its edge smooth as a pebble worn by the Jordan. You pick up the smooth coin, rubbing your thumb over its cool, even surface. The snarled bobbin mocks you from the floor. Inspiration strikes, absurd and desperate. You grab a discarded date pit and drill a tiny hole through its center with your finest needle. You thread the pit onto a stiff reed, then press the smooth coin firmly against its side. A crude spindle whirl is born. You attach a length of unruly blue thread and give the reed a tentative spin. The coin whirls. A low, steady hum fills your corner of the tent, utterly unlike the rasp of flax on wood. The thread flows taut and even, unwinding from the bobbin like honey from comb. No snags, no tangles, just smooth, hypnotic surrender. You stare, mesmerized. Tamar glances over, one eyebrow arching like a desert hawk spotting prey. Making music or mischief? Neither, you murmur, holding up the whirring coin. It calms him. Tamar snorts, but her eyes track the spinning bronze. Fancy foreign nonsense. Yet an hour later, when Rivka yelps as her scarlet thread knots mid-shuttle, Tamar stalks over. Without a word, she plucks the smooth coin from your reed, commandeers a date pit, and replicates your contraption. Rivka's snarled thread yields. Tamar grunts, less chatty than my old one. The innovation spreads like water, finding cracks in parched earth. Hannah adopts the coin whirl for spinning gold thread, its steady balance preventing the fragile strands from snapping. Deborah uses a larger coin to spin coarse goat hair cord, muttering about useful idolatry. Even Bezalel pauses during inspection, watching a dozen coin whirls humming softly under lamplight. He picks one up, feels the balance, runs a thumb over the foreign inscription worn smooth by 1,000 spins. Ingenious, he murmurs, a rare flicker of approval in his weary eyes. The nations bring their gifts, even unwittingly. You cradle your own coin before sleep one night. It bears the profile of a forgotten king, his nose rubbed to a ghostly bump. This discarded scrap of someone else's wealth eased your labor, soothed your hands, became a tiny engine of order in the holy chaos. You slip it into the small pouch where you keep your sharpest needles. Not an amulet, not an idol, just a reminder. Sometimes Providence arrives sweaty and anonymous, pressing cold bronze into your palm when you least expect it. Holiness could spin on something as small as a stranger's small change. The final seam is secured, the last not trimmed. The colossal inner veil hangs suspended between two tent poles, a river of blue, purple, and scarlet cherubim rippling gently in the desert breeze filtering through the tent flap. A collective sigh of near exhaustion washes over the weavers. Tamar leans back, cracking vertebrae like stepping on dry twigs. Done, she rasps, the word thick with dust and triumph. Rivka beams, rubbing her eyes. You step back, heart swelling, until the late afternoon sun slants sharply through the entrance, striking the veil's left panel, and you freeze. It's subtle, almost imperceptible in the lamplit gloom where you'd work for weeks. But in this unforgiving angled sunlight, it's undeniable. A faint, cold undertone to the purple in the left panel. Not the rich, warm Tyrian hue of the rest, but a fraction bluer, cooler. Like twilight versus dusk, your stomach plummets. The dye, lots. Weeks apart. Slight variations in the sea snail glands, the mordant strength, the simmering time. You've been so focused on thread counts and celestial curves. You hadn't noticed the creeping shift in the sacred color itself. Rivka sees it next. Her smile dies. Oh no! The whisper cuts through the fragile relief. Tamar squints, stepping closer, her shadow falling across the divide. She rubs a section of the warm purple, then the cool. Her lips press into a thin line. Deborah? Her bellow shakes, dust motes from the rafters. The dyer arrives, wiping indigo-stained hands on her apron. She takes one look at the sunlit panels, her sharp eyes narrowing. She doesn't need to touch it. Batch 7, she states flatly, pointing to the cooler left side. Late summer snails, grumpier yield. She points to the right. Batch 4, juicier. She shrugs, a gesture that usually signifies practicality. Now feeling like a death knell. Happens, but not here. Not on the veil meant to shield the blinding holiness of the most holy place. Bezalel's sketches demanded unity. Aaron demanded fluidity. Moses demanded obedience. A patchwork curtain, stitched from slightly mismatched purples, it felt like sacrilege wrapped in incompetence. Panic, cold and sharp, replaces the warmth of completion. Rivka looks like she might cry. Can we overdye it? Just that panel? Deborah snorts. With what? Tyrian purple? We used the last gland weeks ago. And overdyeing that, she gestures at the intricate cherubim. You turn the blues to mud, the scarlets to bruises. Ruin the lot. The finality in her voice is crushing. Silence descends, heavy and suffocating. The beautiful veil hangs like an accusation. The hours of labor, the rescued cloth, the beaten suppleness, the hidden scarlet patch, all undone by a whisper of coolness in the purple. You stare at the line where the sunlight starkly divides the panels. It feels like a crack in the universe. Tamar paces a caged lioness. Options, she growls, more to herself than anyone. Burn it? Start over? The suggestion hangs, horrifying. Months of work. Impossible. Hang it anyway? Hope no one notices. She glances at the stark divide in the sunlight. A child would notice. Aaron would notice. God would notice. A bitter laugh escapes her. Or maybe we just drape that end in shadow. Permanently. Hopelessness thickens the air. Hannah wrings her hands. The Reubinite woman stares at the ground. You touch the cooler purple panel. The threads are perfect, the weave flawless. It's beautiful, just different. A tiny, unintended fingerprint of human limitation pressed onto the divine blueprint. The weight of it is crushing. You think of the hidden scarlet patch, a solution born of necessity, invisible from the front. Could this be seen? Or did the presence care about the exact warmth of its twilight veil? An idea flickers, fragile as a guttering lamp wick. Deborah, you say, your voice sounding small in the tense silence. The light in the tabernacle, the lampstand, the holy place, its golden light, yes? Not white desert sun. Deborah turns, her sharp eyes assessing you. Golden oil light, warm, soft. Why? You step closer to the veil, standing directly in the path of the harsh sunlight. The cool purple panel looks starkly different. You shift sideways, stepping into the shadow cast by a tent pole, looking back at the veil now bathed only in the diffuse, warm glow filtering through the canvas. The harsh line softens. The cooler purple deepens. losing its bluish cast, merging almost seamlessly with the warmer panel in the gentler light. In the golden light, you murmur, hope daring to lift its head. Maybe the difference vanishes. Maybe it just looks like purple. Tamar stops pacing. She strides to where you stand in shadow, squinting at the veil. She moves back into the harsh sun, then back into shadow, back and forth, like watching a desert mirage shift. Hannah, she barks. That little oil lamp you use for fine work. Light it. Bring it here. Now. Hannah scrambles. The small clay lamp flickers to life, casting a warm, honey-colored pool of light. She holds it close to the divide. The golden flame dances over the threads. The blues glow, the scarlets deepen, and the purples flow together like molten amethyst. The subtle coolness of one batch absorbed, transformed by the warm, embracing light. The line vanishes. There is only purple, rich, deep, unified by the glow meant to illuminate it. A collective breath releases. Rivka sags against a loom post, hand over her heart. Deborah studies the effect, a slow, grudging nod forming. The light swallows the difference. She almost sounds impressed. Tamar stares at the veil bathed in the small lamp's glow. The tension leaves her shoulders. She looks at you, a flicker of something akin to respect in her tired eyes. Not a flaw, she grunts. A feature, meant for his light. She gestures around the tent, at the harsh sunlight still streaming in elsewhere. Out here, under the big, nosy sun? Sure, things look mismatched. She points to the veil glowing under Hannah's lamp. In there, where it counts. Perfect. Relief, sweet and dizzying, washes over you. The veil wasn't rejected for its subtle variation. It was designed for a specific light. The harsh scrutiny of the world would always find fault, highlight differences. But within the golden glow of the sanctuary, intended for the eyes of the presence, it would be whole, perfect, seamless. The difference wasn't a mistake to hide. It was a reminder that true unity was found not in rigid sameness, but in the transformative light it was meant to dwell within. You touch the purple again, cool and warm threads side by side. In the right light, they weren't divided. They were dancing. The sacred linen hangs now not on tent poles, but on hooks of pure gold. You stand with the other weavers at the very back of the vast murmuring crowd, craning your neck. The Tabernacle courtyard buzzes with the scent of roasting grain and myrrh, the clank of Levites arranging bronze basins. Your eyes strain past the massive altar, past the laver flashing like captured sunlight, to the very heart, the tent of meeting. And there it is, your veil, stretched taut across the holy place's entrance, a rippling wall of blue, purple, and scarlet cherubim. The late afternoon sun strikes it, turning the threads into molten gems. It doesn't look like cloth anymore. It looks like solidified twilight, a fragment of stormy heaven pinned to acacia wood. Your breath catches. The hidden scarlet patch, the midnight beating. The panic over mismatched purple all swallowed by this impossible radiance. A hush deeper than the silence after the broken stones falls. Moses ascends a ramp, not the shattered leader, but the log of a restored, face still veiled against residual glory. He carries the stone tablets, the new words, like they're made of light and lead. Aaron follows, resplendent in the ephod and breastplate, its 12 stones glowing like captive stars. The high priest's eyes scanned the intricate hangings, the polished bronze, the gleaming gold. His gaze passes over the weavers huddled at the back, anonymous in the crowd. He enters the holy place. The curtain falls shut behind him, and Moses with a soft final swish. The cherubim vanish. The crowd exhales as one. You feel strangely hollow. The work that consumed your days, your nightmares, your sweat and tears is done. It belongs to the priests now, to the cloud, to the terrifying, beautiful presence behind the veil you wove. Tamar shifts beside you, her usual gruffness softened by awe. Holds up all right, she mutters, squinting. Rivka sniffles quietly, wiping her eyes on her sleeve. Deborah just nods once, sharp and satisfied, like a master dyer judging a perfect vat. Then movement. The curtain parts again. Moses emerges first, his veiled face unreadable, Aaron follows, pausing on the threshold. His eyes, no longer the stern stones that judged your stiff linen, sweep the courtyard, the altar, the laver, the waiting Levites, the sea of faces. They move slowly, deliberately, taking in the whole intricate machine of worship now complete. His gaze travels along the hangings of the courtyard fence, over the fine-twined linen, the silver hooks, the embroidered pillars, and then it stops. On the inner veil, your veil, he stares at it, long enough for your heart to stutter. Is he seeing the slight coolness in the left panel's purple? The ghost of Fuller's silt near the hem? The infinitesimal bump where the scarlet patch was joined? The courtyard holds its breath. Aaron's expression is inscrutable, the weight of the breastplate seeming to press him into the earth. He takes a half step forward, his hand lifting slightly, almost unconsciously, towards the veil. He doesn't touch it. His fingers stop inches away, hovering just as they had over the stiff cloth in your work tent. But this time, the gesture isn't judgment. It's recognition, a silent acknowledgement of the fabric's reality. His gaze lingers on the intricate curve of a cherub's wing, perhaps the very one you wrestled with unwove 10 times, finally coaxed into being under Tamar's watchful eye. Does he see the struggle, the midnight repairs, the quiet desperation? And it happens, a movement so small you almost miss it. Aaron's veiled head dips, once. A single slow, deliberate nod, not towards a crowd, not towards Moses, towards the veil itself, as if greeting it, as if saying asterisk yes. This is the barrier. This is the shield. This is good, asterisk. The nod isn't applause. It isn't thanks. It's heavier. It's acceptance. It's the high priest of Israel confirming that the flawed, frantic, faithful work of your hands is fit to stand before the devouring fire. That the hidden patches and the whispered anxieties belong here, woven into the very fabric of the holy. He lowers his hand. The moment passes. He turns, joining Moses in the final rituals. But the imprint of that nod remains, searing itself onto your spirit. Tamar lets out a breath beside you, a soft ha of surprise. Rivka beams, tears flowing freely now. Deborah's lips twitch in the ghost of a smile. Told you, she rasps, barely audible. Adds character. The sacrifices begin. Smoke rises. Prayers chant. But you barely hear them. You stare at the veil, seeing it anew. Not just celestial threads, but the scent of wet goat wool, the sting of dye fumes, the ache in your back from the paddle, the terror of the golden calf night, the rhythmic click-clack that held back the madness, the cold bronze coin spinning calm, the shared taste of date cakes and sorrow. It's all there, held within the warp and weft, sanctified by a single, silent nod from the man who walks closest to the fire. The veil isn't perfect. It's yours, and it is enough. A wave of pure, quiet exhaustion, laced with a profound, unshakable peace, washes over you. The work is done. It is very good. The incense smoke still clings to your hair. The echoes of the shofar blast still vibrate in your chest. The tabernacle stands complete, shimmering under the desert sun, humming with a new, terrifying presence. You stand not in the awestruck crowd, but back in the familiar, goat-scented chaos of the dismantling work tent. Your hands still humming with the memory of weaving glory, now sort through the mundane leavings. Empty dye pots crusted with Tyrian residue, snapped loom pegs, tangled balls of discarded thread. It's the archaeology of the sacred, reduced to rubble. You feel hollowed out adrift. Your foot nudges a wicker basket shoved under Tamar's old stool. It's filled with scraps deemed too small, too flawed, too insignificant for the holy work. Frayed ends of blue yarn, knots of purple too tangled to salvage, snippets of scarlet linen snipped from edges, the sacred sweepings. You start to haul it out for the burn pile when a flicker of deep indigo catches your eye. Not thread, a scrap of fabric, barely larger than your thumbnail and possibly dark. You fish it out. It's a tiny triangle of the inner veil's backing. The plain, undyed linen no one but the priest would ever see. But this scrap it's stained, not with mud or fuller silk. It's dyed a rich, accidental indigo, a splash from Deborah's vat during the midnight repair of the cherubim gap, a forgotten drop when Hannah was spinning her finest joining thread. It's imperfect, irregular, a tiny blue shadow on the cream linen. Utterly useless. You should toss it back. But your fingers, calloused from sacred labor, refuse. They trace the rough edges. They feel the slight stiffness where the dye soaked deep. This scrap witnessed everything. It was part of a cloth that had been hauled through mud, beaten supple under Aaron's impossible demand, hidden behind celestial wings to cover a desperate mistake. It was there, silent, unseen. When the golden calf roared and stones shattered and the world unmade itself, it hung, facing the holy place, absorbing the golden glow of the lampstand while the cherubim faced the blinding presence. It was the humble backside of holiness. You tuck it into the small pouch at your belt, the one holding your sharp needles and the smooth foreign coin. It nestles beside them, another fragment of the impossible story. Not gold, not gemstones, just a flawed, dyed scrap of the veil's hidden skin. Later, packing your own meager loom tools, you find your younger sister waiting outside the tent flap. Her eyes are wide, still reflecting the tabernacle's splendor. "Did you touch it?" she whispers, breathless. "The curtain? The one with the angels?" You smile, a weary real thing. "I wove the angel's wings, tadpole." Her gasp is pure wonder. She reaches out, not toward your face, but instinctively towards your work-worn hands, as if they might still hold a shred of the sacred. You hesitate, then open the pouch. Not the needles, not the coin. You pull out the tiny indigo stain scrap. "Here," you murmur, placing it in her upturned palm. A piece of the sky behind the angels. She stares at the unassuming fragment, her small fingers closing around it reverently. It's not gold. It's not glittering. It's just cloth. But her eyes see the tabernacle reflected in its humble threads. "I'll keep it forever," she vows, clutching it to her chest like the world's most precious pebble. "For my bridal chest." You laugh, the sound rusty but genuine. Just don't use it as a bandage. Deborah's dyes bite. You ruffle her hair, the scrap destined for a cedar box beside polished stones and bright beads feels suddenly lighter. Its journey wasn't over. It was moving from the hidden backing of the divine veil to the hidden depths of a child's hope chest, from witnessing unapproachable glory to promising future joy. Holiness, you realize, wasn't just in the gold and the cherubim. It was in the flawed, faithful scraps, passed hand to hand, carrying the echo of the sacred into the ordinary, stitch by humble stitch, generation by generation. The veil was hung. The relic was born. The desert years stretch like spun gold thread under a relentless sun. You watch your sister grow, her treasured scrap of indigo-stained veil tucked safe in her cedar chest. A whispered secret between you. You marry, raise children, build a home in the promised land. Its stones cool under your palms, its soil smelling of olives and promise. The thunder of Sinai, the stink of Tyrian dye, the terror of the golden calf night, they become stories told by firelight, their edges softened by time, like pebbles worn smooth in a stream. You weave tents, cloaks, fishing nets. Good, honest work. Yet sometimes, threading your shuttle through coarse flax, your fingers remember the celestial blue, the weight of holy purple. You catch the scent of acacia wood smoke, and for a heartbeat, you're back in the shadow of the tabernacle, the click-clack echoing the pulse of the camp. Years later, you sit beneath your own fig tree, its broad leaves dappling the afternoon sun onto your lap. Your hands, gnarled now like ancient olive roots, sort through a basket of freshly shorn wool, soft, undyed, smelling of sunshine and lanolin. Not for veils, for your granddaughter's first winter cloak. Nearby, the child plays, her laughter bright as birdsong, her small fingers clumsily attempting to wind yarn around a smooth stone. Your old foreign coin, now her whirl. Tamar finds you there. She moves slower now, her frame thicker, but her eyes still hold the sharp glint of a desert hawk. She lowers herself onto the woven mat beside you with a familiar grunt, accepting the cup of mint tea your daughter brings without a word. Deborah joins her, her face a roadmap of wrinkles deeper than any dye vat stain, her hands still permanently tinted a faint, ethereal blue at the fingertips. Rivka follows, her quiet smile gentler, her hair streaked with silver like spun moonlight. They come often, these women who shared the loom under Sinai's shadow, not to weave sacred cloth, but to mend fishing nets, card wool, share news, and sit in the comfortable silence of shared mountain scaled. Remember the Levite boy? Deborah rasps, picking a stray burr from the wool pile. The one who hid under my loom? He's a grandfather now. Runs the biggest olive press in Shiloh. She chuckles, a sound like stones tumbling. Still jumps at loud noises. Tamar snorts. Remember Bezzy trying to explain the 0.1 millimeters gold spacing? She mimics his intense stare, holding up a gnarled thumb and forefinger a hair's breadth apart. Asterisk, feel the space. Like breathing. Asterisk, she shakes her head, a rare, full grin cracking her weathered face. Nearly drove us mad. Nearly. Rivka holds up a skein of yarn your granddaughter handed her. It's wildly uneven, thick here, thin there, knotted gloriously. Started early this one, she murmurs, her voice soft as carded down, just like her grandmother, full of character. She winks at you. You smile, picking up a lock of wool. The fibers catch the light, warm and ordinary. You begin to card it. The rhythmic swish-swish of the paddles, a lullaby older than commandments. The motion is ingrained. It soothes the old ache in your knuckles, quiets the whisper of ancient, sacred threads in your memory. You watch the fibers align, separate, become soft and ready for the spindle. The talk flows, grandchildren, stubborn goats, the price of lentils, the ache in Deborah's knees, the vast, terrifying tapestry of the Exodus, the Tabernacle, the presence behind the veil. It shrinks, not forgotten but distilled. It lives in the strength of Tamar's hands, still deftly mending a net's torn edge. In the sharp, practical wisdom Deborah dispenses about treating wool for rain. In the quiet patience Rivka shows your fumbling granddaughter. In the smooth bronze coins spinning in small, eager fingers. In the indigo scrap, now sewn into your sister's daughter's wedding shawl, blessing a new beginning. You card the wool. Swish, swish. The sun warms your back. The scent of mint tea and earth fills the air. Your granddaughter abandons her tangled yarn, crawling into your lap, her head heavy against your shoulder. Her breathing slows, deepens. Tamar's story about chasing a rogue goat trails off into a comfortable silence. Deborah sips her tea, her blue-stained fingers resting peacefully on her knee. Rivka closes her eyes, a faint smile touching her lips. The swish-swish slows. The world narrows to the warmth of the child in your arms, the familiar scent of wool and old friends, the gentle sway of the fig leaves overhead. The sacred wasn't confined behind a veil of blue and purple. It wasn't locked in the past with shattered stones. It was here, in the rhythm of work-worn hands preparing wool for a child's cloak, in the shared silence of survival, in the flawed, enduring threads of community spun across decades and deserts, in the simple act of carding wool under a fig tree while the next generation dreams against your shoulder, holding a smooth, foreign coin, a tiny anchor in the vast, quiet story still being woven. Swish, swish, the paddles move slower now. The fibers blur. The light softens, turning golden, like the lamp within the holy place. You close your eyes. The child breathes softly. The wool is soft in your hands. All is very, very well. The carding paddles rest now, nestled in the basket of cloud-soft wool. Tamar's head nods gently, her breathing a low, steady rumble like distant desert thunder, softened by time. Deborah's cup sits empty beside her, her blue-tipped fingers relaxed, palm upward on her lap, catching the dappled light like faded sapphires in dust. Rivka's smile lingers in the quiet lines around her closed eyes, a map of peace drawn by years of small kindnesses and steadfast threads. The fig leaves whisper secrets to the cooling air. Shadows stretch long and tender across the courtyard, painting the world in hues of lavender and dove gray. The scent of mint and sun-warmed earth deepens, becoming the very air you breathe, slow and deep. Your granddaughter's weight against you is a warm anchor, her breath a soft tide against your neck, pulling you into the quiet harbor of the moment. The memories, the stinging dye, the terror of the snapping warp, the thunderous crack of stone, the blinding glory of the finished veil, they don't vanish. They drift like motes of dust in the slanting light. Not burdens, but colors woven into the immense, gentle tapestry of now. The loom of life holds them all, the sacred blue, the humble flax, the knots, the smooth stretches, the hidden patches, the golden threads of hard-won peace. Feel the deep, quiet pulse of the earth beneath you, steady as the beat of a great, sleeping heart. The day's warmth lingers in the stones, radiating comfort. The child's trust is a blanket woven of purest down. The presence of your sisters in thread, their silent companionship, is a fortress against the fading light. Let the soft shush of the evening breeze through the fig leaves be your only song. Let the scent of wool and peace be your only incense. The work was good, the rest is sweeter. Drift now on the gentle current of this perfect, ordinary holiness. The stars are beginning to prick the velvet sky, distant. Kind eyes watching over the slumbering land. Rest. All is held. All is well. Sleep.